You may have heard the old adage, you give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves, but that also works the other way too. I got to be able to have a good relationship with them. I got to be able to speak the truth, but as scripture says, to speak it in truth in love.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by a special guest, my father-in-law, Coach Eddie Mellado. Coach Mellado has 40 years of experience coaching at Oxford High School in Mississippi and North Mesquite High School in Mesquite, Texas. He's coached football, track, cross country, and led strength and conditioning. He coached his brother Jimmy Mellado in the 1988 Olympics in Korea. Coach Mellado has coached 10 state champions in track in his career. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
How does culture drive performance?
I think that's the big question. It is how does it? It just what you believe in is being worked out, and as you're working it out, it drives your performance. So if you expect high expectations out of yourself, and then more things are caught than taught, essentially, then your players or your athletes that you're involved with are going to catch that, and they're going to try to raise the bar on that. And then the leaders in that and catch that from you. And they're the ones that actually permeate down to the others, holding them accountable. So that's how I think the uh, culture drives performance, you know,
I like
that.
that. I love that phrase, more is caught than taught, because I think a lot of coaches forget that we might say the right things and say the right phrase and exactly what our players we want them to be doing, but if we're not mirroring that or living that out ourselves, then you're going to get less buy-in from your players.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Out of the many years that I've been coaching, it's
How
just,
many years total?
I started in 1981, or yeah, 1981, right out of college, graduated in August and got a job in August kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's been a number of years, and I God has really blessed me beyond measure with the men that He put in my life, as far as my bosses and my teachers, and being mentors, people that I still communicate with. Um, and when I go to the THSCA convention, some of the guys, well, Tim Edwards, for example, was a head coach at LD Bell, who hired me to be one of his junior high coaches. Um, I still see him occasionally, and he still remembers me. So
Yeah.
I guess that's good.
So with over 40 year or almost 40 years of coaching experience was incredible. And your arena was football and track, but when we're
Yeah.
talking about working with players and athletes, that it doesn't matter really what sport. Over all those years, we talk about culture driving performance. How did you deal with some of those athletes that just seem to resist the culture that you were trying to enforce or put in?
Well, you may have heard the old adage, you give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves, but that also works the other way too. I got to be able to have a good relationship with them. I got to be able to speak the truth, but as scripture says, to speak it in truth in love. Now, I can speak the truth and I can be real harsh with it, and I can really cut them off at the knees if I wanted to. But that's what are you trying to do? You know, you can cut your nose off out of your face, but if you don't have a product to put out there, then why? You know, so I think it comes down to having a relationship with those kids. It doesn't matter at what level, whether it's at the junior high level, um, where they know that you care about them more than what the performance is. You know, You got to be able to love them and be able to tell them that you love them in spite of performances, especially when they perform bad. More times than often, then is that some coaches will just really berate them.
Yeah.
I can't believe you did that, or really come hard on them. Uh, I think when you love them, in spite of what their actions are, performance-wise on the court or on the track or on the field or whatever the situation may be, is um, that that they've got to know that they have a safe place where they can fail and they can learn from that failure.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
I think you're right on the money with the word relationships. And I've been able to ask that question to a lot of coaches, and I think every time it comes down to that, where when you have a relationship with them and they know that you care about them more than just their, like you said, their performance, then you're able to get more of a intrinsic response from them. They want to do it, not just to please you, but they want to do it themselves rather than extrinsic. I need to do this or else coach is going to rip me apart in front of all my friends again. And that extrinsic path may work sometimes, but it's going to
Very
dry
little
up. It's
does
going to
it
dry
actually
up to
do.
where all of a sudden they tune you out and they don't even care how much you
Well,
know anymore.
yeah, not even that. It's just not only will they just tune you out, but you have to get more outlandish
True.
with that. I
It
mean,
has
you
to
got to go
build on
really
top of it.
way up
Yeah.
over the top, and then you're running out of energy. And then what do
That's
you
right.
got? Love is the motivator to me. And I spent some time 40 years ago, 42, maybe 3 years ago, whenever I had to write my philosophy. And I can just remember, and I still have it, and it's handwritten. So as terrible of a handwriter I was, it's even worse now than then. But I just remember thinking, the God of the universe came down for me, to rescue me, to redeem me. And that kind of love is the same kind of love that I need to have towards my players. It's a redeeming love. Yes, you messed up. I love you. You and I work on this together, and let's get better at it. Whether it's a skill on the field, on the track, uh, or in a personal life. I've gone to funerals of my athletes, and I've gone to their weddings, and I've experienced the birth of their children with them, if they were close by, or through the pictures on Facebook and stuff like that when I deal with them. Um, I had one write me a letter not too long ago that that he and I had such a good, unique uh, relationship that we could talk through our workouts collectively.
Mm.
And he ended up being third in the state, ran a 150, a 149 in the 800, and was a part of the JOs, the real Junior Olympics, the age group deal, and he represented the United States in Chile and several other places, and he was just phenomenal to work with. And he was one that I had to actually pull back on the reins and say, "Hey, time to relax, time to cut the workout if we had to, kind of thing." So that was the kind of the give and take of what the love motivator provides.
I
And
think,
I think that's what I've tried to do throughout my career, whether it was in a team effort or was it as an individual like that.
I think that kind of leads right into the next question, which is how do you live out your culture on a daily basis? If it drives performance, how do you as a coach live it out every day?
Well, I have to perform myself as well. And I probably didn't do a very good job of taking care of myself over the 40 years, but just kind of knowing that, I got to be more prepared than them. And then I got to be able to communicate to them what the desired is. outcome is. Because there were a lot of times that I would say, okay, we need to do this, that, but they wouldn't able to complete it. And so I didn't do a very good job of putting together the plan that we needed to for them. And
That
that's where
one
that give
second
and
though,
take.
that self-awareness though that you had right there, did you have that in the moment, or is that now looking back you have it? Because I think a lot of coaches will get upset with players in the moment, and sometimes even for things that really haven't been taught.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it, it's a combination of both. Uh, I know there are times that I've left the track and I go, man, that was bad. And that was my planning. That was really bad, because I kept going here and there and trying to get this and that done, and I didn't give them an opportunity to get better.
Mm.
And there are times that I had to say, hey guys, I'm sorry, man. I screwed it up. That was all on me. And the workout really sucked. And it was just me. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to do better. I'm going to learn more about you, and you've learned something about me as well. So don't be afraid, A, to tell me, and B, I got thick enough skin that I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. But if they do get hurt, is probably my fault, So and then that's that really good, tight, love of relationship that I think I have with my kids. I still
Yeah,
call them my kids.
yeah, I think that's powerful though, that because that type of culture allows players to have an environment or a place where they can fail when the guy in charge also shows that he can make mistakes and owns them. And then the way that we own those mistakes, it goes back to that what's caught and taught. We show them how I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from this and we'll be better because of it. I think when you do that as a coach, you allow your players to, oh, okay, so that's what it means to own it and to learn from
Yeah,
it.
right. And I can remember about 15 years ago, I was really questioning whether I needed to finish coaching. I was looking at getting out of it because I was frustrated. I was had a certain mindset. I wasn't willing to change. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, there's got to be a better way. So a buddy of mine and we talked because I told him about how I was feeling. And he said, hey, have you thought about doing it this way? And I said, okay, well, let me research it. And that's where I started coming into how I changed my training to where the kids feel they felt a success at the end of the day all the time, and not just dog tired that they can't even remember what they did 5 minutes ago. I want them to be able to feel fresh when they finish as they did when they started, and still get the same amount of work. It's just done different. And that was a change in philosophy for me as far as how to get things out of it. I could say I was like a Clyde Hart, where they was just long, hard grit. You just dying at the very end of it. But now it's more of a lot of short practices or repetitions within the practice unit, and then go home, feel fresh, and then come back tomorrow and you'll want more because I just salted the water a little bit, got you thirsty, and I can give you something to drink, So it really helped. Honestly, if things hadn't been so different the last 2 years, I think I could have made it to 70 and still be coaching active.
Yeah. It's amazing though, that shift that you made, you said, 15, 20 years ago. I think that's one it's been happening more and more now, but you might have been kind of early on because even 20, 24 years ago or whatever that number is when I was in high school. I mean, I think I remember the long practices and the two-a-days and I think even early on as coaches, it's almost like a badge of honor. How long did you go today? We went for 2 hours. Well, we went for 3 hours today. Like you almost try to one up each other. But now, you're the idea of less is more. It really challenges us as coaches to have a practice plan that is precise and you cut out the fluff What do we really need?
Mm-hmm. And that includes all the rest periods and everything, because the rest periods have to be strategic to me. Um, uh, I can remember the 3 hour long option type offensive practice that you had your individual care period, then you had your hulls, and then you had your other different kind of hull, and then you had your team, and then you had specialty. And it ended up being a full 3 hours, and that's not even to include video watching or film sessions or individual sessions with kids too. So it was long, and I know you had asked the questions of how do you live out that culture. Well, the expectation of excellence for me was, okay, I got to be at the field house no later than 7, and then the work is done when the work is done for the day, and I can prepare. And I felt like I can leave today prepared for tomorrow. And if I need to make adjustments in the meantime, well, I can do that as well.
Hmm.
So it just, what do you expect out of them? You better do it yourself.
Like that. So what daily habits set you up for success? And honestly, I mean, I'm not even talking about wins and losses success, but just being able to be in one profession for 40 years, like that's a huge success, because there's just not, I mean, I'm 15 years into it. Coach, I don't know if I got 25, like left, but but that's incredible. So what were some daily habits that you had that set you up for that success?
Well, the first habit is marrying the right person. They got to have an understanding heart and a love for you, and for you to put in the time that's necessary, whether you're doing it at home in the office or whether you're doing it at the school. For me, since I was at the field house at 6, depending on what season I was, because there was a time in my life that I had cross country, football practice, and all in the same vein. So practice at 6 o'clock. So that means I was leaving the house at 5:30 because the kids were getting there at 6:15, 6:30, and I was always the first one, always. Because if I wanted to expect my kids to be the first there and the last to leave, I'd rather them meet me and we can shutter the place, so that kind of thing. So that kind of a thought. And then in that 30-minute period time between my getting there and my receiving them, I'm going back over what my day was going to be. What cycle am I in? Where am I in the season? If it's early, if it's middle, if it's late, just plan differently for those different seasons within the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the season's over, I'll step back, not, reduce the time a little bit, but not much of anything. The whole thing is that first 30 minutes of my day after I spend time alone, it's when I can set the plan for the day. And if anything comes along during the day, then I have contingencies to draw from. The other thing is that I research the stuff that I like to do, that I want to do. I research, okay, so how is this going to affect it? So that takes time. So as my conference period goes through, then I start looking at, okay, what would be some possibilities? If I do this, then I was talking to so-and-so, and okay, how can I implement? I really like that. Those kinds of things. And then I'll see how other people are doing it, and then I can see if I can apply it to my situation and to my kids. See would they respond to it? Because there's some things I tried, and boy, that flopped. And then there were other things that, okay, well, all right, let's keep going with that. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I've always, since I've known you, I've seen you as a lifelong learner. I think great coaches are always trying to acquire new skills, learn new things. How did that help you, throughout your 40 years? Is like you kind of alluded to a second ago, but even still, like you'll send me a text of something new that you've learned or found. But where does that come from? That wanting to learn new things?
I think that's part of being excellent. Even though I'm retired now, I still want to feel a connection to what I've been doing for so long. And if I can mentor other people to do it, great. Again, it's that caught, not taught,
Mhm.
and the people that know me know that I'm going to do things in the right way. And for me to stay on top of things, then I got to research how it affects my culture, my particular program.
So we've been talking a lot about relationships, and the one relationship that I've just always admired that you have is the one that you have with the Lord. And it's just something that I aspire to, is having that type of connection, that type of feeling like you have. And so, being a coach, and then over time, what are some things, some like practical tips, if you will, like for building the relationship that you want with God?
I have to spend time with him. That's the bottom line. Uh, for a long period of time, I know people say, "Well, you got to go into your little room and do this," and I said, "Well, I really can't, because then I'm cutting out another part of my home that I need to do." So I squirreled away time. Like I would drive 30 minutes, 20 minutes to work. Well, that 20 minutes is going to be filled with something that's going to be God honoring, whether I'm listening to the passage I'm supposed to read that day, or listening to a sermon, or because there's a lot of things, to be not only hearers of the word but doers of the word. So once I hear it, then I need to apply it, and when I apply it, then I can minister to others in that same light. You know, um, Lately I've been doing my morning, instead of driving. It's turned out to be a couple of hours in the morning where I would read my passage, I would have my devotional, and then I would read a book, and I would read 2, 3 chapters. Some books will take me a little bit longer than normal, because I want to just ruminate on what I just read. And I have an extensive library that that I've borrowed, cajoled, maybe stole.
That's what I had a coach I was talking to. He said, never use the word steal with coaching. It's everything is borrowed. So he
That's
said,
correct.
always
That's
borrow,
correct.
always borrow. So I'm fortunately, I know your parents, because they're still here
Yep.
and doing well, and Tito and Tita, and I love. I mean, me and Jan have talked so much about their relationship with God and how strong it is, and how Tita just seems to have this direct line of communication, and but so obviously, you learned from them, and caught a lot of what they were teaching. But at what point did your faith, I think for everybody it goes from, it's not just your parents' faith anymore, it's your faith. When did that happen for you?
I was in second grade, living in Sweet Home, Oregon, getting ready to. Uh, we were My family at that time, since we didn't have a whole lot of TV like we do today. Uh, we would catch the Billy Graham crusades, but because of the inculcation of God's word in my life before then, uh, Billy Graham was preaching, and he used a verse out of the Revelation, chapter 4, I believe, chapter 2. And he was talking about that he was going to give us a new name, and he was going to give us our new name on a white stone. And the mind of a second grader, I went to my mom and said, I would like to know what my new name is. So another way to do that is to become a Christ follower. And with that, she walked me through the plan of salvation, and it was such a treat and an honor for them, and followed in baptism in the Philippines, because we moved from Sweet Home soon thereafter.
How many places did you live as a young person?
Oh my. Uh, yeah,
Do you even know?
want to say
Do you know the order
14,
or 14? Do you know kind of where you went throughout or?
kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents were living in California, Anaheim to be exact. Uh, and then I was born in Mexicali, Mexico. My mom wanted to be close to her parents, but at 3 months, or maybe even less than that, I was in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then went to Argentina, and then from Argentina back to the States, back to California, and then to trying to remember, because I know there's a 3 year difference between me and oldest, my next sister, youngest sister, and so somehow we ended up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and El Salvador, and Colombia, and uh, uh, Nicaragua. The list seems almost endless. But yeah, 14 times. And the
Yeah,
longest time, the time I graduated high school, was in Panama, the Canal Zone. So graduated high school there after 4 years there, and then went to college and stayed there 4 years, and then moved to Texas. So as soon as I could.
that's right. That's right. All right, this is one of my favorite questions to ask coaches, especially those that have had long careers. What's one thing you would do differently if you could start over in coaching?
I'd be more patient. Uh, Early on, being a really young guy, I thought I needed to be a yeller. And um, I remember one day my dad chiding me a little bit. Ever the mentor he is, he goes, "Did you ever notice Tom Landry?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You see him ranting and raving everywhere?" "Nope." "There you go." So he didn't need to say much more other than
Yeah,
that. So
yeah. I had almost the exact same thing happen. I was with a coach on one of these things with Tyler Costin. He was talking about things that coaches do that that they shouldn't, and one is just how much they're yelling and how active they are on the sideline during games. And he talked about John Wood and how John Wood was very quiet, and also Greg Popovich. He said it's not that because a lot of times coaches think that if I'm not up bringing energy and rant and raving and being all, then how can I expect my players to, or then I'm not, it'll appear as if I'm not coaching very hard. And Tyler, and kind of what you just alluded to, said the opposite is true. He's like, if you've done
mhm,
the work necessary in practice, then in games it should just be very few reminders. But
right.
those coaches that are more reserved, maybe they've got it right. So I still have a hard time just shutting up on the
Yeah.
sideline, but my college coach, Dave Bliss, he talked through every possession, and I played for him, and so I still feel that influence on me when I'm watching my
Mhm,
guys, almost like I want to help them
mhm.
get there, but at
Yeah.
the same time I'm like, well, what would Popovich do? Or
Yeah, and uh, my first my first high school job, Gary Childress was that way. I can remember, and it just as clear as day. My first year there, we were 9-1, and there was a three-way tie between us, Highland Park, and Wilmer Hutchins. And the way to satisfy that tie was to coin flip. So I remember waiting at the field house late that night, Friday night at the end of the year, and he and uh, Frank Beavers and I'm trying to remember the guy from Wilmer Hutchins, and I just can't remember real quick off the top of my head here. Met at the Circle K in Dallas Mesquite line, and they did the coin flip. And I can remember Gary walking down the stairs, and all the coaches were out there just kind of anticipating. And he goes, "We're out." That was it. We're out. We did not get through the playoffs. We had the number one offense in the area, and probably the number two defense in the area as well. I mean, we were really ranked up in there, and it was devastating. But it also took that kind of man that kept the ship going and not ranting and raving and throwing this whole thing, questioning everything. It set the tone for the next 4 years. And the next 4 years were, I think we lost maybe 3 games out of that next 4 years. So it was, I really, really learned a lot at that point. People will respond, or the kids will respond that are heated situations to calm, and I think it reminds me of the scripture is to be, that says to be slow to anger, and sometimes when we're so outlandish that we can really fly off the handle and be angry when we're not intending to be.
Yeah. Or
it gives that appearance, and that's how some people would view some kids receiving that as well. Yeah. I can remember another time where I had a running back of mine that fumbled 5 times, 2 of them in this crucial situation at close to the end of the game. But I didn't have to correct him ever again.
He was probably already hurting him, and that, I think that's what
he was.
Yeah, a lot of, I think good coaches recognize when players are making mistakes, but trying to do everything the right way and are already hard on themselves. My high school coach used to make comments that he felt like he couldn't coach me, like the way he wanted to, because I was already hard on myself.
Beat him to it, yeah.
And so there's another lesson there for players is, part of being coachable is allowing your coaches or giving them the opportunity to coach you by not being too hard on yourself and being open to what they're receiving. And then it's, to your point, it's up to us not to beat them when they're already down, and go. What you said at the very beginning of this is speak to them in truth and love, not truth and harshness.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got that picture of him sitting on the sideline, helmet on the ground, and he's all dejected, looking away, and I have my finger in his face, because that was about the 4th or 5th time, and I'm trying to get him to relax.
Yeah.
And I really understood what my dad was telling me and what I saw in Gary at that time.
So I feel like I know you pretty well, and there's a lot of people. I mean, you've coached so many and influenced a lot of people in this area, in Mississippi as well. But the speed round, Coach, is going to help all of us to know you even better. All right, you ready for it?
Okay.
And I'm gonna do something with you that I've never done with anybody. I'm gonna go through all of the questions.
All right.
So I don't care how long this takes. We're going to get all these speed round. Ready? The first one, your favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla. I go to Baskin Robbins and I know 31 flavors and all that. Vanilla. I can count on it.
Okay. So normally I'll ask people, a basketball coach, I'll ask them for high school shot clock or no shot clock. But I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you, there's a coach, a football coach that always goes for it on 4th down and always onside kicks. What are your thoughts on that philosophy?
I think you have to really, really understand how it all fits because you're playing the odds. You're looking at the statistics and say, hey, if I do this enough, then I can overcome that. And your kids buy into it. So I'm not against it.
Could you do it? If you
Could
were
I
the
do
coach, if you were the head coach and you had control, would you do it?
it? Situational, I'm afraid.
Situation. Okay. All right. The next question, texting or talking?
Talking. There's a lot more that you can say by saying it instead of texting
Sure.
because of the features and
hmm
all the connection there.
Favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? I'm going to have to say Christmas because the story begins there.
I kind of knew that one. Okay, so that's right on the money. What's your next favorite?
Easter.
Okay. Invisibility or super strength?
That's a good one. I'll have to say probably invisibility.
What's the fastest speed you've ever driven a car?
I plead the fifth.
If,
Pretty close to 95 to
yeah.
100 almost.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Oh my. Shoot. Man, that's a tough one because there's just I like history.
Yeah.
I didn't teach history, but I like history.
I know you love those movies, those documentaries and stuff.
Oh yeah, and reading those some of the books, because I'll read biographies and stuff like that. I would have to say probably, and I know it was really really difficult living, but the frontier, moving it, the westward expansion. You know, you're talking about the newness of finding something new.
Yeah, that's
You
cool.
know,
Place you most love traveling. Where do you love to go to?
growing up as a youth, we visited Hong Kong a couple of times, and I've always just had an infatuation with Hong Kong, but uh, probably the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite junk food?
I know. I had so many. I'd have to say Whataburger.
All right. Favorite childhood TV show?
Rawhide.
Nice. All right, two more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Depends on the size of the cup.
1 cup or
1 cup. That's what I keep telling my doctors. I have a cup.
Just one
it just
jug.
Never finishes.
Just one jug.
Well, I had a 32-ounce cup that I would start the day with, and I would finish it in the field house in the morning. And on my way to class, the secretaries always had a pot of coffee for me because I would fill it up on the way through.
Yeah.
And then on the way back down to the field house after class,
That's
I'd
just
have
3
another
cups.
one.
That's
So
just 3 cups. That's no big deal. All right,
I
last
just never
one.
finished.
Last one, probably the most important one. Godfather or Star Wars?
I'd have to say Godfather.
I thought you would. Now I know you like Star Wars. It's not that
I do.
you're anti, but
No.
I could see you really getting into the story and all of that of
And the family.
Yeah, with Godfather. Well, Coach,
Matt, thank you.
I'll just tell you, this was such a treat for me. A couple things that I want to thank you for. I want to thank you first for allowing me to marry your daughter, because she is incredible, and she's the most amazing person that I know. Thank you so much for, I mean, from the very beginning, you just accepted me and welcomed me with open arms. And then also thank you for the wisdom that you've been able to share over the years, and all the things I've learned from you. To me, you're just one of the most special people that I know. And so thank you for all those things, and also for your time, because I got a lot of good stuff out of this.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm humbled that you would ask me. You know, I really am, because it just, I just man, I don't know if people want to hear me. So,
They
I'm grateful and thankful that you would think of me to do this, especially when I saw the list of people that you have done. So I was thinking,
well,
oh man, I'm
right
just a low
after
man on the totem
right
pole.
after Scott Drew, you got Coach Mellado here.
No,
Yeah. But you know
you're
what? It's the cool thing
27
about
episodes.
yeah, the cool thing about getting to do this and your getting to talk with you proved it. Um, Coaching is just way more than X's and O's.
Yes.
Because I mean, and you and I had a great lunch where we talked about offensively what we do here at Faith, and it was fun to
That ways
explain
I
that
can
to you.
learn.
Yeah, it's fun to explain that. But then also, like today, you were able to teach from the 40 years of teaching a game and working with young people. And to me, I don't care who you are or what your resume is or what level or whatever. 40 years of knowledge, there's just so much we can get from that. So I think more people will enjoy listening to you than you think.
Well, I appreciate that. Most definitely. And I just want to thank you for letting me be a part of your life, especially on this. I thought this was interesting and, and humbling, but I always thought, man, that's just right up your alley to do this.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.